All right, we are coming in for a landing. We are moving into Chinese religions. You should be able to define or explain certain terms in the Chinese religions. For example, qi, um, when it's spelled qi, that's the pinyin romanization. When it's spelled chi, that's the old Wade Giles romanization. Either way, it's pronounced qi. It means breath, energy, or vital force. It's not a word that you can directly translate right into English, but you get the idea. It's something that has power, that is within you, that you want to focus. It's part of the fundamental kind of the elemental forces of the universe. Um, in some versions of Chinese religion, it is understood that the qi comes in two forms, the yin and the yang. Yin, that word literally means shady side of a mountain, but it refers to that which is female, of earth, dark, cold, passive, hidden, receptive, and actually a host of other things. So if you look at the diagram up there in the corner, the yin is the right-hand side, the dark side. And yang, the word literally means sunny side of a mountain, but it's more than that. It's the concept of male, heaven, light, hot, active, open, initiating. And so the idea of yin and yang is, as you see in that symbol there, you want them to be balanced. They complement each other. They do not oppose each other. We're not talking good versus evil. We're not talking about the dark is bad and the light is good and they're fighting. No, 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 no. The idea is that these are both, they just are. They're not good or bad. They just are. They're different forces, different elements, and we want to have them balanced. Balanced. And that's what that symbol represents. And again, when I say yin, we're talking about the female. We're talking about that which is dark, that which is cold. When I say yang, we're talking about the light, that which is hot, that which is active or open. Hopefully you get the idea. If you don't, I'd suggest you go back and watch that video from TED Education on the hidden meanings of yin and yang. Now, you should be able to define Wu Xing. It's the five elements in ancient Chinese religion. And those five elements are wood, fire, metal, earth, and water. So remember those. Remember also the two types of spirits or deities or ghosts or demons. Supernatural beings come in two forms. Shin are the benevolent ones, and Gi are the bad ones. So Shin and Gi. Shin being benevolent spirits or deities, Gi being malevolent ghosts or demons. The ancient Chinese concept that is most analogous perhaps to God would be Shangdi, the Lord of Heaven. But later, as the religions developed, especially Confucianism, there became more of a sense of the ultimate being called Tian. And this word, while it literally means sky or heaven, a better translation or understanding might be the force above. And so it was understood that there was this thing called the mandate of heaven. If you were a ruler, if you were the leader of a dynasty, and you had the mandate of heaven, then your dynasty would last. But eventually, what happened in Chinese history is that it was understood that a dynasty lost the mandate of heaven, Tianming. They lost the mandate of heaven, and that's when the dynasty was overthrown and came to an end. You should be able to define those. Confucius, hopefully you would recognize some version of his real name. Confucius is a Latinization that was invented by Catholic missionaries, basically turned that into a Latin name. But the man's real name was Kongfutsi or Kongfutsi, something I probably won't be able to pronounce in this lifetime. But in English, it would simply be Master Kong. Master Kong. Now, in China, they don't really talk about Confucianism. They talk about Rujiao, which means the way of the scholars. You should be able to define that. The way of the scholars, Rujiao. Some very important concepts in Confucianism. Ren. This could mean humaneness, benevolence, altruism, love. Perhaps the best way to translate it is human-heartedness. This is the chief virtue. This is what you're going for in Confucianism. And a main way to develop Ren is through Li. The word Li means to arrange in order. But what it means is propriety, proper conduct, etiquette, customs, civility, ritual, public and private ceremony. So here's the idea. Ren is that subjective inward state of human-heartedness. Li is that outward, visible way of demonstrating human-heartedness that also helps you develop human-heartedness by carrying out the rituals of Chinese society, by acting with civility, by living according to the customs and the etiquette, by living in propriety, proper conduct. As you do those things, you develop a heart of Ren, human-heartedness. And those things demonstrate your Ren, your human-heartedness. And so Ren and Li are related in that way. The goal is to become a Chunsu, a Junzi, Junza. Someday I'm going to get somebody to teach me how to pronounce Chinese words, but as you see, it is very difficult to just take those and create an equivalent in English. But what is a Chunsu? It's an exemplary person, a profound person. Sometimes this is translated gentleman or nobleman, but perhaps a more meaningful translation would be mature person. So you are working towards becoming a Chunsu, which is a person whose heart is humane, who lives according to the Li, the propriety, the ritual. So you should be able to define those terms. Be sure you write those down. Xiao is another thing you should be able to define. It means filial piety. It refers to the respect shown to parents, grandparents, elderly relatives, and deceased ancestors. Remember in Taoism, we have this fellow by the name of Lao Tzu. That's a term that could be translated the old boy, or maybe the old master, or even the old baby. Lao Tzu, you'll hopefully remember, spent his life in a dreary office job and finally went into retirement, riding off to the west on his water buffalo. And when he got to the gate, when he got to the western gate, the guard there said, "I will not let you pass until you write down your wisdom." And so Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, also known as the Tao Te Ching. In our textbook, it's spelled the old way with the T, Tao Te Ching. But the Tao Te Ching is the main scripture of Taoism, and it's called the translation is the classic of the way and its power. Jing, that means classic. De, that means power. Tao, that means the way. So the Tao Te Ching is the classic of the way and its power. A term you need to remember from Taoism, you should be able to define this. Wu Wei. It means acting without acting, or effortless action. In America, we kind of say it like this: go with the flow. You should be able to define this term, Ziran. It means natural spontaneity. One of the things that you're going for in Taoism. You want to achieve Wu Wei, which is effortless action. You want to experience Ziran, natural spontaneity. You should be able to recognize the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching. The way that can be followed is not the eternal way. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. That gets translated a lot of different ways, but you see it's this kind of mystical understanding that if you are seeking the Tao, which is the way, but if you can easily name it, you haven't found it. If you can easily follow it, you're not following it. It's that mystical kind of understanding. Back to Confucianism for a second, you should be able to recognize the 5 constant relationships that were important to Confucius. They are parent and child, husband and wife, elder sibling and younger sibling, elder friend and younger friend, ruler and subject. Those 5 key relationships. Remember that Confucius was very concerned with defining roles in society. He felt that society would function best when we all understood our relation to each other, particularly the you might put it the higher to the lower, the hierarchical relationship. So be able to recognize those. Be able to recognize the 5 classics. The Yi Jing, sometimes spelled I Ching. That means the book of changes or the classic of changes. Jing, meaning book or classic. So there's the Yi Jing, the Li Ji, which is the record of rites, the Shi Jing, book of odes, the Shu Jing, book of history, and the Chung Q, the spring and autumn annals. Now, know that beginning with the Han Dynasty, those 5 books, the 5 classics of Confucianism, became required reading for all Chinese students and the basis of the civil service exam. One of the things Confucius did was to open up government service or one of the things he wanted to do, which later happened under his name, was to open up government service to everyone. If you could pass the exam, it wasn't inherited, but it was something that anyone could do. And those 5 classics and the teachings of Confucius were the basis of the civil service exam in some form, with only a few interruptions, all the way up until 1905, the 20th century. Understand, though, however, that at some point in Chinese history, it kind of became Neo-Confucianism, and one of the aspects of Neo or New Confucianism was that the canon switched from those 5 classics to the 4 books, the Analects, and those are the sayings of Confucius, the Great Learning, the Mencius, written by Mencius, and the Doctrine of the Mean, which is about finding that middle way between the 2 extremes. Be able to recognize the 3 teachings of Chinese religion, or the 3 teachings of China, I should say. The 3 teachings of China, Confucius, represented in this picture. Hopefully you remember the story, the vinegar tasters, how each of them responded to the vinegar in a different way, which sort of encapsulated their view of reality. But you have Confucius with the cap, you have Buddha in the middle, and you have Lao Tzu over to the left. And so what you have in the 3 teachings is, or in the picture of the vinegar tasters, you have the 3 teachings of China: Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. So be able to recognize those. And there you have it, my good friends. If you will take those notes, study those concepts, maybe look back at your readings, the things you highlighted and made notes on. Maybe look back at your quiz answers, read your response papers. You will